our community, our hometown. This is Kearney Live on 102.7 FM, our hometown radio station. Kearney Live is presented by Kearney Trust, 310 West 92 Highway in Kearney, 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
Oh, man. Yeah, thank you. That's our studio audience up there in the balcony with a nice round of applause. Hey, welcome to Kearney Live. I was so excited to watch the new intro there, Brian. That is just terrific. We've got new lighting in the studio. We've got a new backdrop. We have all kinds of things going on in here, not the least of which is Mr. Jim Dickerson, my co-host and good friend, sitting right next to me. And there he is, Jim Dickerson.
Well, hello.
I'm so glad to have you here today. I know there are days when we miss you because you're out traveling, but today is not one of those days. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good to be here. Glad to be back. And, one of the things, came back last night and got back just in time to hear the tail end of the girls' basketball game, which was, I know, what we were not expecting or not wanting, but I just wanted to say congratulations to the girls' team. They finished the season 26-2, which is phenomenal. 26-2, and of course, one of those losses was last night, and that team was really something special to watch. Great job by the guys at the Bulldog Radio Network over there, Dan and Andy, for their coverage of the team all year long. And I know there were a lot of milestones that were reached as well. Caroline Kelly scored 1,000 points, and we had that on a few shows ago. But congratulations to the girls' team. Outstanding job this year, and quite frankly, looking forward to seeing what you guys do next year. And then, of course, some of the girls going on as they were seniors, and they'll move on. But congratulations to the girl team. Great job.
Good job by Troy Ressler, too, the outstanding coach of the Lady Bulldogs girls basketball team. Just does a terrific job with them, and you can tell the connection that he has with that team, and likewise, it's great chemistry, and you just have to appreciate, the investment of time and the labor of love that goes into coaching especially a sport like basketball that goes on seemingly week upon week during the winter, and then of course now it's over with. Suddenly it's over like Christmas when you lose, but unfortunately, great job everyone. Jim,
I agree. Hey, and some of you might have noticed too. The studio has changed. We did a studio upgrade while we were off for the last 2 weeks. Had the Kearney Chamber lunch last week, gave us a little more time. So the studio got a little upgrade while we were gone. Whoa. And so you guys are killing me up there. But yeah, if you look behind us, of course, it's all changed and everything else, and you'll see some changes probably as the show goes on. So special shout out to Brian, the executive producer of the program. Everybody loves Brian. And as Mike said, and you may not realize this, but Mike has actually said this, and it's true. Brian never has to pay for a meal when he goes out somewhere.
Well, of course
everybody knows him and everything else. Mike and I go somewhere and nobody even recognizes us.
They don't. In fact, they're not sure they even want to let us in the restaurant, much less, buy a meal or a cocktail.
We have that problem. But be that as it may, thanks to Brian for did a lot of work, got everything in here. And there's a lot of stuff, obviously, behind the scenes that
technical
you can't
stuff.
see.
Very, very technical.
But,
and he does a masterful job.
We're not going to show you that.
No, you don't get to see that. I did want to mention, Jim, that we have Marie Steiner in with us today, and we're going to visit with her as the first. Hello, Marie, there you are. And on the Alderman Candidates series, Marie is our first guest, and we will bring her in just a moment. I did also want to mention, Brian, we have updates to the coupon page, and more importantly, we have a new coupon sponsor, and it is Roberts Robinson, GMC, and we want to thank them for being a part of this. Now, at one point, they were a sponsor at the radio station, and we welcome them back as a coupon sponsor. I also want to point out there are a ton of others on there, Porter's Building Centers, and just a host of others. Certainly Stitch of the Time, they've been on there before, and Casey Coyote, the Prime Business Group, and, of course, Mike Davis Creative Services. Can't avoid that one. Vaporwise, Golden Moore Jewelers, 9 Round Fitness, and others. And I cannot emphasize enough the value of a coupon in building store traffic and helping to drive customer awareness. It is a great, great way to enhance your radio spot, and it is a portion of our media mix in the integrated marketing plan that we have for you right here at 102.7 FM. So we really appreciate you out there, you businesses and supporters of the radio station, and certainly don't want to overlook Kearney Trust, who is the flagship sponsor of this very show. We cannot do this without sponsorship, and all of these, the new production, the equipment that you see in here, this is all the direct result of you in Kearney and the businesses who have taken it upon themselves to be a part of us as sponsors. Our job is to make sure you guys make some money off of these sponsorships, and we appreciate absolutely.
You know, and that brings up a good point, because someone asked me at one point, someone said, do the coupons really work? Now, I'm not going to name the business. I'm going to let that go for now. But there was a business, there is a business, it's actually still there. There is a business that we did a coupon for last year, and it was so successful
yes,
that they called us in a panic and said, stop the coupon, because so many people came into the business. Let me tell you, as a business owner, that is a great problem to have.
If you're running out of inventory because you have so many people trying to give you their money, that's a good problem to have, and we should all, as business people, we should all be so lucky. In any case, yeah, there are a couple of other case studies.
Yes,
they absolutely work. So that, Jim, I don't have anything else on my agenda here. Do you have any other announcements?
I do not as of right now. I think what you're getting ready to talk about is we're getting ready to go into candidate forums and candidate session. Mike will talk a little bit about our guests today and then who we're going to have for the next couple of weeks here on the show. Also wanted to remind you that coming up, we'll be hosting, along with the Courier Tribune, or I guess the Courier Tribune's actually hosting and we're there, but either way, we'll be there together, the candidate forum, and that is going to be on Thursday, March 26th. That's just a couple of weeks from now. And we'll be having the forum, and I think the plan is we're going to cover it live. Is that right? Yes, we're going to have live coverage of that. Mike and I will either be there or in the studio. I'm not sure what the logistics of that are. They're still working that out. They tell us where to go, and we show up.
The technical guy across from us will figure it out.
He'll tell us where to go, and then Mike
he'll
and I
tell us
show
where
up.
to go, all right.
Yeah, he does that all the time. How about I rephrase that? He'll tell us where to be.
Listen,
then we'll go from
we appreciate everything he does, no doubt about it. Marie Steiner is with us today, and Marie, you are one of the 3 candidates we have in the Alderman Candidates Series, and welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here.
Mike, Jim, and Brian, thank you for having me and putting this all together. Very much appreciated.
Well, we did it last year, so presumably it'll be a little easier this year. It wasn't that it was that difficult last year, but, after all, we are Kearney's hometown radio station, so I think this is a critical part of it. Staying up on local government, I think, is a huge. It's something that I think citizens need to know about. And I'm going to ask you, Marie, just if you would, just give me a personal introduction, your personal history, where you're from, and how long you've been in Kearney. Just let us know a little bit about who you are.
I was born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri. My husband of 45 years and I moved to Kearney in 2009. We moved here so that we could be here for our goddaughter when she started school. I never had children or adopted, but in my soul, all children are everyone's responsibility as long as we're on this planet. This is a quote that I borrowed from a book that said How to Live Forever in Your Legacy, and I think it describes me perfectly because we do not have children.
Wow, well said, well spoken. Yeah. Well, and so you haven't lived here. You weren't born and raised here in Kearney, and neither was I, for that matter. But we have a business here, and we certainly are happy to be a part of it. And you mentioned just a little bit about your family. Tell us a little bit about your education or military service or career background.
Okay, I'm the 4th of 5 children. I was the first one to graduate from college. I graduated from William Jewell with a business administration degree and a paralegal certification. Between my husband and I, we have 16 veterans in our family.
Oh, wow.
My husband served 2 tours in Vietnam. The Midwest Genealogy Center, Mid-Continent Library, offers an oral history for veterans. One of my life goals is to interview 50 veterans, and I've entered 10 so far. In saying that, if there's any veterans out there that would like to be interviewed, I certainly would like that honor to do that. I have a display of 16 veterans of my family that I have shown at the Genealogy Center. I've also showed it at the Woodness Library as well. I'm a retired banker of 40 years. I managed 2 facilities at different times during my career. I learned sign language because I had deaf customers and I saw their frustration when they had to write down every communication of the service that they needed.
Oh, wow.
So I found that was something that we needed, and they would tell their family and friends, so they came to my facility, which in turn helped my branch.
No doubt about it. Wow.
So 2 things there. Number one, we won't do the sign language here because it's radio. Well, the TV part of it would work out maybe, but for the radio,
not to mention the fact that neither Jim nor
Yeah,
I know.
I
I don't
didn't
think
go
you do,
anywhere,
Jim.
but
I know I don't.
For the radio listeners, they'd be sitting there wondering what was going on. When you talk about interviewing the veterans, which I think is a great thing because we're losing, especially the ones from World War II, and getting their story, I think is just so important. But when you say you interview them, what exactly do you do, and then what do you do with the interview?
Well, the Midwest Genealogy Center has an actual room with equipment that they record the veteran as I'm interviewing, asking them questions that they're presented ahead of the interview. I may not ask all the questions, and then the veteran can actually tell me which ones they do not want asked. But it's a conversation like we're carrying here. I ask them a question about where you grew up, how did you become interested in being in the service? And then from there, they kind of seem relaxed, and then they start going through their history of the time that they served.
Right. What brought you to this project? What on earth made you say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing?
I'm glad you asked. I was doing our history of my husband's side of the family when I got interested in genealogy, and I realized that we had 16 veterans in our family combined. It led me to another avenue in as much as you said, the World War II veterans, there are fewer and fewer of them. So I became interested and started with my husband, and then from there, friends that I knew, and it just kind of continued from there. Friends said, well, I have a partner. I know that he would enjoy doing the interview, so it's taken off from there.
Well, this sounds like something we could do on a whole other episode of Kearney Live, and we maybe need to write that down and schedule it. Everybody's shaking their head yes in here. It's a good idea. I finally had a good idea. No, that's terrific. I really love the sound of that, and particularly as we see the greatest generation that my dad is a part of, who's about to turn 89 this month. So, and a Coast Guard veteran. So very, very cool. We really appreciate those guys, and men and women from that era. As I'm looking down the questions here, Marie, obviously you've gotten involved in politics for some reason. What was your driving motivation to run for alderman here in Kearney?
The late Mayor Bill Dane.
Oh, yeah.
I retired January 3rd, 2014, and the following week, Mayor called me and asked me if I'd run for alderman. And I had told him at that time I was interested in getting more involved with the community, and he said, well, think about it.
Yeah.
Well, an hour later, he called me back and said, did you think about it?
I can see him doing that. Yes.
That's Bill Dane.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, will not take no for an answer, Bill Dane. Yes.
So it just kind of followed from there that I got more involved with it. And the mayor was a big believer that everyone should give back to the community. Right. And that's my motivation, is to give back to the community.
What a terrific answer.
And so, through your life, you've obviously done a number of things. But what would you say is one of the things that makes you qualified to be an alderman for this city?
Well, I'd have to say my 6 years I have served so far as alderman. I think that qualifies because there is a learning curve. You can't just sit your first term as an alderman and be prepared. There is so much that you need to learn.
Yeah. What's that like? The first time you're elected and you're sitting down at one of those meetings, and how are you feeling at that point? It's a lot like the first day of school, I would imagine.
First day of school, or when you say the deers, the lights, in your eyes, you're like,
yes.
You're a little
I
bit
have that every day. Every day.
Right there with you, buddy.
It's a little overwhelming because now you find out you not only need to learn the style of the board, because everybody has to work together as a team.
Yeah.
There's reading that's involved. You have to keep up. There's an agenda packet that you're given before every meeting that you have to go through.
Little prep time.
Yes.
Yep.
And if you don't interpret everything, or you need definitions, or you need to understand what is being discussed, then you have to get back with, right now, Jim Aldridge is my city administrator, and he's the one that I follow up with.
Right.
What does this exactly mean? Make sure that I understand what I'm voting on, what I'm voting for.
So this is, you say this is after 6 years now.
Well, after 6 years, it gets a little easier.
Right. Now, I'm curious, at the beginning, though, did you have somebody who was sort of a mentor, or somebody that you could go to and say, hey, I don't really get this thing. What is happening here? Please explain to me what this, what this new ordinance is about, or something of that nature.
Well, and that's what I would reference to Jim Eldridge, the city administrator. I'd ask him questions, and then he would give me answers. But my mentor, I would have to say, was Dan Holt. He's been on the board the longest.
Yeah,
and Dan would tell me, okay, Marie, this is how we handle it, or this is how I've handled it in the past.
Right.
So I kind of get a feel for that I'm not stepping out of line, so to speak.
Yeah, and Dan has spoken about that, and when he was mayor, he talked a little bit about how they always welcomed new aldermen and new people on board, because certainly you certainly want to welcome folks who take it upon themselves to be a civil servant and represent the people, which I think is just a really neat aspect. Wanted to let people know we've got Marie Steiner in with us today. She is number one of 3 candidates that we're going to have on the Alderman Candidate Series here on Kearney Live. We're getting ready to take a very short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Programming heard on KPGZ is being underwritten by these local businesses.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. For those of you just joining us, we're doing part of our candidate forum series for the upcoming elections here in Kearney, Missouri for the alderman position. Just so you know how this is formatted, We've invited all the candidates into the studio so that they can take part in this, and I think all have accepted. All of the candidates are provided a set of questions that we may ask. It doesn't mean we'll ask them, and it doesn't mean we'll ask all of the questions, and we may ask additional questions, but they all are provided with the same number of questions, and they have the opportunity to look those over and then answer in the way they choose. That way we try to keep it so that all the candidates have the same questions presented to them, and we don't have one that gets a gotcha question or something like that. However, in all fairness, if a candidate were to provide an answer that led to follow-up questioning, that is acceptable as well. But we do try to keep it as fair as we can for all three candidates so that you can make an informed decision come Election Day. Don't forget also on March 26th, the candidate forum that will take place over at City Hall, and we'll cover that live here on 102.7 FM KPGZ.
Marie, when you talk about a lot of times, listen, as a public servant, I think fundamentally what we're talking about here is leadership. And the people of Kearney have put their confidence in you to represent them as their alderman representative. Mm-hmm. When we talk about leadership, there are so many definitions and so many different ways, I think, that we measure it. From your own personal point of view, how would you say that your leadership capabilities have prepared you? And in effect, what is your leadership style?
The first thought that comes to mind is listen. Mm-hmm. You can't hear, when I was in a retail environment, you can't hear a customer if you're doing the talking. So that's the first skill that you need to have. Mm-hmm. Hear them through. You're going to not always agree. You may agree to disagree. And you have to understand that everybody has their own opinion. If I don't know what they disagree with, then I can't either support it or voice their concerns if they don't share it. So I guess making yourself available, knowing where they can contact you if they have an issue.
Kearney has really come a long way in the last 10, 15 years, especially in the last 10 or 15 years. And as you look at surrounding communities, excluding, of course, Liberty. Liberty's a little bit different because of their proximity right up against Kansas City and the way Kansas City expanded into it. But Kearney, as a population of about 10,000, has really developed in a way that has been very strong for the community. And I think that's because a lot of people say it's because of the foresight that Bill Dane had when he was here. But now as we move forward, we have to look forward to the next 5, 10, 15 years. How do you see the community developing over those years as we move forward?
Well, Kearney is following their comprehensive plan that we put together in 2016. That's our guide for the next 10 years. As you said, the population is growing at a healthy rate. We're right now at 10,500. When the new interchange gets completed, that's also going to be another way for our city to grow. We've got to undertake some new stormwater improvements that have been identified over the course of the past several years, and it's recommended that the board consider presenting a use tax question to voters in the August or November election. That's very priority right now.
So infrastructure is a big one, obviously.
A very big one, big, and very expensive one.
Well, it is, and I think it's obvious. I think to especially to many of the residents that currently live on the west side of the interstate, and certainly we expect that is a potential growth area. And to the best of my understanding, that not all of that infrastructure, in fact, a good deal of it, doesn't even exist yet. So I think as that comes around, certainly I would agree with you. I guess just as sort of a follow-up, how do you as an alderman help sort of manage expectations for those folks who are already there and how would you suggest that you might help others who potentially might want to move? Would you have direct contact with some of the citizens? I mean, would you hear phone calls and things like that? Do you often get phone calls from folks from the city who would ask you about things like that, like infrastructure?
Well, it depends on what's affecting them at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if, like you said, if their sewer line is having a problem,
Yeah.
or if there's flooding and it's running on their property, then you hear something. If it affects them directly, you hear from them immediately.
No doubt about it.
Yes.
That's the way it works, right?
Right.
That squeaky wheel.
Right.
As you know, here at the radio station, we're really we really try to help the businesses, because the business, if we have a strong infrastructure, a strong business economy, then that's going to make people want to come to Kearney, especially as it deals with retail and all that. But there's other types of business as well, which creates jobs, which, as we know, generates revenue, and on and on and on. How would you rate the business foundation here in Kearney, and what are some things we can do to help improve that as we move forward?
Well, Jim, I think you know Stacy Bratcher. She's the executive director for the Chamber of Commerce.
Good.
Very
Right.
well.
You bet.
Okay. She is aggressively working towards the 5 pillars of purpose. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see those
We
yet.
absolutely have. We worked together with her on some of those. You bet.
And I think they're excellent, promoting and celebrating businesses, empowering business excellence. But you know what really stood out for me was quoting Stacy when she said, "Keep your town in business by keeping your business in town." I
Love
think
it.
that says a lot.
Yep.
Says a lot. But Stacy has been working very aggressively. She's constantly, getting the businesses involved, getting them together, making them understand that, how they support each other.
So it sounds to me like you have a good relationship with our local Chamber of Commerce. And I think what you're demonstrating exactly, I think some of the things that in managing and working with local businesses and as it applies to the Chamber of Commerce, I can't think of a better example than what you just said, in which people can utilize an organization which becomes a tool for your business as much as they can, the Chamber of Commerce, especially this particular Kearney Chamber of Commerce, because they are proactive. They get out in front of these issues, and I think it's a neat place to start. So yeah, the Kearney Chamber, you can tell, is near and dear to our hearts.
Yes.
Here at the radio station, and certainly I think by most of the members. If you're not a member, I highly recommend you become one.
Yes, I agree.
One of the things that we hear, and we heard often here on this show, is that people in Kearney, they'll voice their concerns that we don't have enough amenities like a community center or a swimming pool or recreation areas. In all seriousness, that's an infrastructure item. I mean, so I get that there's tax dollars involved in a thing like that. But just off the top of your head, what are your thoughts on some of those, let's just call them recreational type amenities for Kearney, Missouri?
I myself personally travel 3 times a week to Liberty Community Center to swim. So I understand, and I dearly want a swimming pool also in Kearney. But I also understand that there was a bond issue presented to the voters, and they voted it down 70%.
Right.
So it's important for the residents to know we attempted to use the money from the shops at Kearney, but business did not fill in as we anticipated, which we could have the taxes. Shauna Searcy, the executive director of Kearney Area Development, she's working aggressively to bring amenities to Kearney. But the demographics have to say it will work.
Yeah, and I guess if it's rolled out there in a bond election, that's your answer.
Well, I was going to say 70% is a strong message.
I should
That's
say.
not like 51%. And I think one of the things that people have to be very wary of, and I think it's a fiscally responsible thing to do, is you have to look at what's good for the community, not what's good for you. There are, to kind of back up what you're saying, there's a lot of people who they're like, well, I want this and I want that and I want that. But you're one of 10,000 people in the community.
Or more now.
Or more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. If I were listening, 10,500, I believe you said earlier. So you have to look at what is good for the community. And, quite frankly, you bring up the swimming pool. It's not like Liberty's 600 miles away. It's just down the road. It's not that far.
That's right.
And I know Excelsior has a whole brand new community center over there, which is not that far. And quite frankly, if the infrastructure supported it, more power to it. We can build 3 pools if we wanted to.
Could not agree more, Jim. Yep.
Infrastructure for everybody, I think, is crucial. How often do you get people that do that, or that do call you and say, hey, we really want a swimming pool, but you have to explain to them, the fiscally responsible thing is we need to take care of infrastructure.
Every time there's an election, it always comes up.
Yeah.
It always comes up.
Well, I think that swimming pool lobby is a strong one.
Yes.
And understandably, I mean, when you see the kids who are involved in the swim program at the high school, and we've got who's Coach Long over there who just does a tremendous job with the swimming program, and you just would love to be able to see these kids, not have to drive to Jewel or other places to swim or work out, or frankly to have meets. How fun would it be to have a home swim meet in Kearney, Missouri? And
it would be great.
Sure, and knowing the kind of revenues that sort of thing would generate. I trust me, I'm a big fan of sports and athletics, and unfortunately, not everybody in the community shares the same enthusiasm as a swim team parent. But I'm curious that as you look down the road, what are some of the amenities that you think about that might potentially be planned for here in the not too distant future?
My dream list?
Yeah.
A bowling alley. Something as simple as a bowling alley.
Right. I wish we had the sound effect right now. I can hear it in my head. I love that.
Wow, Brian, way to be prepared on that one.
Well, if only
a good
we'd known.
Producer would have had a bowling alley.
But I think it's a great place for community gathering. I really do.
Right.
I really do.
Well, that's a small business opportunity.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, right here, there's Kearney is devoid of a bowling alley, for crying out loud. Where are you, business people? And where is that sound of those pins crashing? My goodness.
Well, so along those lines, though, we do have, and we're kind of unique in this area because we have the amphitheater. We have the Kearney Amphitheater, and I know they're doing Music Man, which is one of my favorites, later this year. And to you, Mayor Pogue, no, I'm not auditioning. Sorry. No, you got to work to get this kind of talent. But no, they're doing some great things out there. Is there anything we can do to expand what goes on in that area? Because we've got the amphitheater there and the park and everything else. I know they did the bull rides and the demo derby and all that sort of thing. Is there anything we could be doing out there to expand what we have?
Without new infrastructure.
Yeah, the facility's already there. Is there anything we can do to expand
take advantage?
that?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Well, I know there was some discussion about a dog park.
Oh, yeah.
On the southeast side by the maintenance shed. Mm-hmm. There's been some discussion in as much as that's overflow parking, but it hasn't been discussed with the committee for the Jesse James Festival yet. But I know there was some discussion on that.
Any talk of a cat park?
Have not heard any.
I haven't either.
I'm
just curious. You never know.
No.
I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. That your cat park is going to get you think 70% was big? I'm going to think if you're a cat lover, don't call. I can see the letters coming already.
I can see cats running amok.
Why don't you like cats, Mike?
I do. I have one, actually.
But can I ask you a question
Sure.
regarding that?
Now I'm scared.
What would you like to see at the amphitheater that isn't already being?
What would I personally like to see?
Yes.
Actually, what I would like to see, my personal thing is, and I don't know, I would anybody who's made a comment about the amphitheater too, I would urge you to do the same thing. What I would like to do, if it were up to me, I'd research it, of course, because I don't know what the capacity is from a security. The way the amphitheater is laid out structurally, in the road that runs by it, you've got some concerns and
security type concerns,
security,
right.
Traffic, and for those of you who watch the show regularly, I was there at the Crown Center deal when we had the small band came in, because we used to do the Friday night concerts down there, and we had this small unknown band called Brooks and Dunn. Don't know if you've ever heard of them. Yeah. At that time when we had them in, they were nobody. Nobody knew who they were. And they hit it big after they were booked, but before they showed up. So when they showed up down there, the crowd, it blew up.
Yeah.
They spilled into Grand. We had to close Grand Avenue. So that sort of thing has to be planned for. So in other words, if you wanted to bring in, I'm going to throw something out there. If you wanted to bring in like Journey, you have to have the infrastructure for that and the ability to not flow into the street and close. You know what I'm saying? Do all that.
Yes, I do.
However, if it were possible to do it, because Sandstone, what is that place called now?
I don't know.
It was Sandstone when I was a kid, and then it was Verizon and whatever.
Yeah,
but it's,
yeah.
The amphitheater out there in Bonner.
Right.
They bring in some big name entertainers, music, comedy, things like the Music Man. I think it's a great idea. Starlight Theater does the same. And the criticism with Starlight is it's not easy to get to. And there's some safety concerns for people who go down there. We have a beautiful facility and a beautiful opportunity. I would love to see it expanded and utilized to its absolute top capacity. But I say that with the caution, I don't know what the capacity is. It would take some research. But if that answers your question, that's what I would love.
That answers my question.
I think it is a beautiful facility. I think it has a lot of potential, and I would love to see it.
Somewhat untapped.
Yep.
I would agree,
to its
Jim.
full extent.
You bet. We're listening. That was Jim Dickerson, but we've got Jim. We've got Jim Dickerson definitely on the show today.
Running for Alderman.
Well, we're glad you're here, Jim, and we are glad Marie Steiner is here with us, and she's asking the questions now. I like it. I like your interview style. You're listening to Kearney Live. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A special thank you going out to underwriters like these for their support of KPGZ.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to Kearney Live. That was Jim Dickerson on air drums, and just
thank you for not putting that on the air. Appreciate it.
Playing your heart out. I'm telling you, I love the new bumper music, Brian. We've got a new intro. We've got new music. Kearney Live is alive and well, and you are here with us. We've got Marie Steiner in here with us today. She is number one of 3 alderman candidates in our Alderman Candidate Series here on 102.7 FM, Kearney Live. And Marie, again, just another big fat welcome to you. And for folks, if you're just joining us, Marie is talking a little bit about yourself, about your background, and certainly your experience along with several others on the Board of Aldermen. So you're running again. We talked about amenities. We talked briefly about some things just a moment ago about our Jesse James Park and some of the other activities about swimming and so on and so forth. Let's get back to the hardcore infrastructure here. We've got the interchange being built within the next 5 years, and you mentioned earlier that's going to dramatically change, I think, the face of Kearney, definitely from just progress and building on the west side. But as far as public safety goes, that's something I think that's going to expand, obviously, with population growth. Mm-hmm. Public safety concerns are in the forefront. What do you see, and as far as public safety goes, how does that rank on your list of priorities for Kearney, Missouri?
Well, Jim, for one, the traveling of our school buses, currently they're having to go down 92. Well, you also know what goes down 92 and up 92 is your tractor-trailer traffic. They're wanting to go up there to the stop. So This is going to move our buses over to 19th Street. It's going to move all of our residents on the west side of town to use 19th Street, avoiding 92. Also, you have the wait time for getting on I-35 off of 92 to 35. It's a 5 to 7 minute wait. It's only going to increase 10 to 15 minutes, and it will continue to increase as the population increases. And I don't know if you've noticed there was repairs on the underneath I-35 bridge, mm-hmm. and see how far back that traffic, well, that's what our traffic is going to look like if we don't have that new interchange. And then things will get more congested. You're going to have more traffic problems, and you're going to have probably more accidents, which is going to cause more wait time. So that is a priority, getting that traffic over to 19th Street, get our school buses off of that highway, get our residents on the west side of town moved over.
Right. And clearly, as we talk about public safety, if we have law officers, law enforcement that are responding to traffic issues due to an ineffective infrastructure, then certainly they're not available to do maybe other calls that could be potentially far more life-threatening and important. What do you think, and how do you envision, as we speak about law enforcement and public safety, what do you see and how do you envision our police and fire departments growing here in Kearney?
Well, as our community grows, the number of officers will need to continue to grow with it. We have a new squad room and provided new detective office and additional workspace for new and future officers. We currently have 17 officers, 1 chief, and 1 civilian. Now, in regards to our fire department, I did contact Chief Pratt, discussion on plans for another fire station. At one time, the west side of Kearney was being considered for another station, but the economy slowed down and it no longer was a priority. Mm-hmm. Now that the building is coming back and the population is increasing, Chief Pratt continues to monitor the response time calls volume. And Chief Pratt made it clear they have not secured property or funding for a future building.
Right, and I just, as you say that, you look neutral, I think, but just maybe expand on that a little bit. Personally, how does that make you feel?
Well, one, I trust their decision in as much as they're monitoring it as far as the fire department.
Right.
I trust that. Keeping track of the time, how long it takes them to respond. Mm-hmm. I guess I just have faith in that they know,
Sure.
what they're doing in as much as...
No, that's a fair answer. yeah, I mean, you leave these things in the hands of the
right,
experts.
the people who know,
right,
the
right.
people who, yeah.
Right.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're really fortunate here in Kearney. We have a really strong police department.
We do.
You rarely hear, or I don't hear very many complaints about them, which some departments are nothing but complaints. And I'm not talking about the complaints from the criminal, I got arrested.
Bad guys, I got caught.
Yeah. But no, our police department is very well regarded. So what do you see going forward to make sure that we keep that we keep that and sustain it? And same thing, like you talked about, you add population, you have to add officers, response time, all that sort of thing. So going forward, what's your conversations been with the police department, and what are their needs and our ability to get them what they need? Because we surely don't want to be in that boat that Clay County's in, where they're not funding their department. Well, they are now, but all the trouble they had. But what does our department here in Kearney say they need, and what are we going to do to make sure they get what they need?
Well, first off, I have to say, Chief Carey, when he makes a request for officer equipment, vehicles for the police station, there is no hesitation from the board.
Yeah.
We want our officers to have what they need to do their job. And if it's vests, uniforms, an automobile, that they're well prepared, their computers that they carry with them, their office area so that they can do their work that they need to do, their paperwork.
Right.
Anytime they ask for what they need, they get it.
Yeah.
Recently, we just gave them new tasers. They now have those. They have radios, cameras.
Right.
And right now, the police station is being equipped so that it can be a place of exchange for either property or custody. It'll be videoed so that our residents know it's a safe place that they can go.
Right.
So if they ask for a car, do they get any car they want?
They do not.
They don't?
No.
Because I was going to say...
No.
The Batmobile.
That is exactly what I was going to say. I might reconsider my choices and go back to that law enforcement. Yeah, if I could get a Batmobile. So
just like every business, you have to have a guideline. There is a guideline.
See, there's always those rules.
The voice of reason. Goodness.
Could I get like an Adam 12 car? I've always liked that.
Brian,
do you think your listeners know what an Adam 12 car is?
That's unlikely.
That's a good point. Okay, I digress.
I'm pretty sure not. Although I do. All right, Marie, you live here in Kearney. And do you care to say what neighborhood you live in?
Oh, I have no problem with that. We live in the Clear Creek subdivision here in Kearney.
Mm-hmm. Any reason in particular that you chose that, or was it just a home, or what?
When I had told you initially we had moved here to help with our goddaughter when she started school, we looked around the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We were downsizing, so this seemed to be the ideal place for us to locate. So that's why we chose that particular neighborhood.
Yeah, that's just you seem like a very frugal individual, and when you say downsizing, I can appreciate that. I know what you mean. Yes, absolutely. Jim, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you.
No. I saw you jump up to the mic and jump right in.
Well, I try not to, lounge too much back there. So a lot of, as someone who's been in the office for a while. What's one of the things that you've accomplished in your time as an alderman that you're most proud of?
I would say a couple of items. I was invited to a PTO meeting at one of our great elementary schools. They have issues on 33 where motorists will not slow down during the posted time for school hours so that the crossing guard can get the children from one side of the block to the other. And a couple of times almost hitting the principal with their vehicle. So they invited me to the meeting to see if there was any way that I could help them get a speed trailer. The police department have a speed trailer.
Right.
So I said I would definitely see what I could do. So I worked through the city. Then we worked with the chief of police. We now have a speed trailer. So they do post it up there to let the motorists know the speed limit that they're going is over.
How's that working? I'm curious.
Well, Barney says it's working very good, which he's the assistant chief.
Right.
And we got them, again, something that was possible to give them all the information they needed to work with. It will tell them how many cars pass through, what the speed limit, how high over the speed limit they were going. So he has a record of that as well. Barney would post the speed trailer in one position, and then it would be offside so that if he needed to pull the motorist over, he could at that time.
Right.
The other thing that I have been involved in and proud of was the old tennis court of the high school that is now the skate park and pickleball court. I was the youth committee. Again, the late Mayor Bill Dane asked me if I would head that committee, and I did. And he said, make your list of what you wanted to bring for the youth. So that was one of the things that was the top of the list, is they were wanting a skate park.
Oh, outstanding. You know, that's the sort of thing you drive by and you say, well, I wonder how that happened. And here's right here in studio with us, Marie. That was one of your ideas on your wish list. Very cool. Yes. And I always see people over there using it too.
Yes.
So yeah, interesting.
Do you play pickleball?
I don't play the pickleball, Jim.
Do you play pickleball?
I didn't even know what it was.
I didn't either.
I just heard that it was a popular game.
Right, those things bounce
and
funny.
And you can
those
go to
pickles.
City Hall and check out your balls and your paddles, I guess they call them.
Right.
They will check them out for you so that if you don't have your own.
I will just say.
Is there pickleball like a tire? I mean.
You've not played pickleball?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I've been to.
I think
it's
to
sort
me
of
like tennis
on a short court.
Right.
Is that what it is? Well,
Yeah.
I've been to the place down in North Kansas
That's what I was
City,
going to talk
Yes.
about.
But I always take a left turn and end up at the bar. I've never ended up on the court. I was drinking water, but no, I've been there, but I've never actually played.
Mm-hmm.
And for my health, it's probably good that I don't. I don't need to embarrass myself. Like
Well, remember,
that.
Jim, my game is bowling.
That's right.
I
That's
see
right. Because
that.
Mike's
Right.
going to buy a building and build a bowling alley. I
Oh,
remember
that
us
would be
talking
great.
about that.
Wouldn't that be funny if that
Can I
actually
quote you on that?
Yes.
No.
Congratulations.
No,
Mike
don't-
Davis's
don't-
bowling alley
don't
should be
quote
open
me.
by the end of the year.
That's Jim giving me some more bad publicity. One other thing I'm not going to do. Put that on my not to do list.
Well, speaking of that, let me ask you this one more question. Is there anything that you're working on that, as an alderman, you want to finish as you move in? If you were to get elected again, that you want to finish moving forward in your new term?
Sort of an ongoing project. You're thinking.
I got her on
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
I think I want to hear the tick, tick, tick. Dun, 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 dun.
Nicely done.
And your answer.
There are so many that I don't have one over the other that kind of takes away. I guess I would have to jump towards the youth.
Yeah.
I'd love for our old firehouse to be more expanded so there was more room, that they could serve more youth, and that we had transportation for an after-school program so that our youth, that have that in-between time when they get out of school and parents get home from work.
I like that.
I'd really like to see that.
But when you say you'd like to see it expanded, what part of down there would you like to see expanded, as far as like what they offer? Or
I think the staff, I'd love to see more staff so that they could serve more youth. They don't have a lot of staff there. That way it would make them more able to take in more children. They're limited because they don't have the capacity. That's what I'd really, really like to see.
Right. Well, Marie, I can't tell you how much we appreciate having you in here. And as the first of three alderman candidates, I think excellent answers, by the way. And
thank you.
Really, I think your experience shows. And obviously, you've had a couple of good mentors, and you've spent some time here in the city. You're obviously a resident here, and I love the ideas that you've had leading up to this particular time, and it's really neat to hear some of the other ideas that you have for the community at large. We're going to do this again next week. Who do we have next week, Brian? It is for next week for Ward 2 Alderman. We've got David Lehman would be our candidate, and David will be in here, and we'll do a very similar thing here.
And that is for Ward 2.
Right, Ward 2, if for those of you keeping track at home. And certainly we'll do much of the same thing again the following week, but we won't get too far ahead of ourselves here. I do want to thank you very much for being with us here on Kearney Live, and certainly a big, huge thank you to Kearney Trust Company and the wonderful folks over there who have done such a wonderful job over the years, nearly a century, I think, here in Kearney, Missouri, and we appreciate them. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next week on Kearney Live.